Now, welcome. So, Croke Park, 3:30 Sunday, the culmination of what has been, I think, the best football championship all in a very, very long time. And it is a final to whet the appetite. Really, really hard to call this one. Kerry against Donegal. Happy to say we are joined from Kerry by Tomás Ó Sé. Hey, Tomás.
Joe, how are you?
Very well. We have in studio Philly McMahon. You're very welcome.
Hey, Joe.
And Colm Keys of the Irish Independent. Colm, great to have you on.
Thanks, Joe.
Our GA coverage on the podcast with thanks to AIB, at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county. And in 25, they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. You can check out the hashtag, the toughest for more. Tomás, you're in Paddy's Pub by the looks of things.
I am. Joe, I'm back here. There's a Raid in the Gaeltacht show on here live today. They're celebrating 40 years at the bar here. So that's on today. And there'll be live music at 12 o'clock. They'll be lifting the rafters off the place. So it's good. It's good. The language is huge here and the love of football, obviously. And that's something Donegal have in common as well. So looking forward to it.
So this is Dolly Parton, Tom Cruise territory. Photos up.
Yeah, are you into your music, Joe? Are you into your traditional music? There's a guy here now. He was practicing a while ago, Steve Cooney. He's brilliant on the guitar. He's a genius. He's a musical genius. But they'll all be the Begleys. They'll all be in here later on.
Oh, brilliant! And is that to coincide with the final? It is.
It's coincide with any old scheme, Joe, to get a crowd back. Basically, it is coinciding with the final, and it's coinciding with the they're just doing a small thing. 40 years, so they're having the show live from the pub here.
Nice.
So there'll be a few characters around the place.
Nice.
Tomás, Steve Cooney accompanied Dolly Parton on that famous video all those years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, and he was telling a good story there. He was telling me that years ago we played above in Casement Park when Casement Park was there, and I suppose tis way back in the 90s, and we played a match, and middle of winter, that time the matches were played before Christmas, the league games, Colm were played before Christmas. And after the game, Cooney landed in. Cooney was eccentric. He landed in with no shoes on and a guitar in his hand. And Paddy says, sit down there and start playing a few tunes. And he played, the dressing room was hopping above there. But I reminded Steve there a while ago, he said he saw Mark walking out of the shower. He got the biggest fright in his life to see Mark naked, which is a compliment in a way to the man.
Ah, dear. Sorry, I mentioned Parton. I mentioned Tom Cruise as well. Have I misremembered Tom Cruise, or was he there as well?
Oh, he was.
They
They were filming, wasn't it Far and Away? They filmed.
Far and Away it was, and he was staying back the road.
Okay. Were you there that night as a kid or anything?
I was there when Cruise was here, I wasn't here. I wasn't allowed across when Dolly Parton was here.
Right.
I was too young.
And what age were you when Tom Cruise was in?
I'd say I was in secondary school. I'd say it was the first year, yeah.
Okay. So enough to know how amazing it was that Tom Cruise was in your uncle's pub.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. It was massive. Like he was, Jesus, we were around for about 2 months, solid. And there was only about 3 or 4 minutes in the movie. You know, it was crazy. The money. Like,
yeah.
My brother was working on the set behind there, clearing tables inside this big marquee, and he was making more money clearing tables than my father was in his job.
Why? Because of the tips, or just
per week? No tips. They just paid.
They just paid. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you and Tom keep in touch, or?
We do, Joe. We do. It's hard now. The Wi-Fi is poor back here, but we try our best.
So what's the mood in Kerry? Quietly confident, I'd say.
I don't know. I think very wary. I think very wary that McGuinness will throw something. I think there's confidence in one way because there's a lot of lads playing well. And everybody, it would suit Kerry to say that it's only a one-man team and Clifford is the only. But in the last number of games, I think what you're getting from your half-back line and what you're getting from Joe O'Connor and what you're getting from the bench, I suppose, is giving you hope that they need to show up. The likes of Shawnee and Paddy need to show up. And if they do show up, then it'll be some battle. But they don't underestimate the danger that is in Donegal. And when you talk about that, you're talking about what they'll offer defensively. And then they have no one man to tie down, Joe. You know, they have 7 or 8 or 9 fellas who can run and weave and loop and just clip a point from 25, 30 yards. So that'll be the challenge, to maintain that kind of focus for a full 75, 80 minutes to make sure that they track everybody and block them out. But I won't say confident, but I think they're in it with as good a shout as Donegal are.
Yeah, for sure. Philly, if a teammate or just another player came to you ahead of their first All-Ireland final and said, any advice on handling the preceding days or the day itself, is there anything that you've learned over the years that you'd offer?
I would just say to the individual, just probably do your job. What are you being asked to do? What have you been doing that they're getting you the jersey? I think the key thing going into a final is to recognise that it's just another match, and the noise that comes in from the outside, you have to be able to deal with that and absorb it in a way that brings you back to what your job is, right? Because the more you drift, the more you'll underperform. So for me, there's a little simple kind of exercise you'd do. You'd say, okay, what's going to give you your best performance? What's the 3 things you're going to get after? Or you can see the 80-20 rule, like what's, and if it's, for example, if you talk to a guy who's a forward, a young lad that's coming into the squad, and he says, well, I want to get a few scores, you'd say, right, okay, how long is it going to take you to get those scores? Probably by the time you get the ball, kick it over the bar, it's a couple of seconds less, and if you dictate your whole game on 3 or 4 shots in the entirety of the game, then you're not really looking at the bigger picture here. So can you work hard? Can you support your teammate? Can you be vocal? Can you really pull it back? And you'll see a lot of lads nowadays, even McGuinness on the sideline, he has his wrist strapped and he has a Donegal logo on the, I don't know if it's tape. You see Murphy has it. But I'd imagine they're little kind of triggers that they'll look at when they're drifting a little bit or they need to stay focused. So all of those little tools will help, particularly lads start new in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah. Same question to you, Tomás.
Yeah, I can only speak from keep to myself and stop listening to the outside noise. People will talk. I don't think anybody in the GA has seen what happened to Cork there in the hurling final, and I've no doubt, I'm living in Cork, I've no doubt, it's not the full answer, but I've no doubt it had a heavy impact on what they were listening to for the last, not only 2 weeks, 2 months. So you have to block it out, and you have to just keep to yourself and keep to your own tight group and focus on one thing, and that's just performing. And if you have 15, 25 fellas in the same mindset, you're going to have a good chance, because all like physically they're as fit as they're going to be, Joe. They've gone through everything. They've gone through all the tactics. So then there's only one thing left, and that's to show up. So, and I don't think you can bog yourself down with that. I never bog myself. I think about it 3 or 4 minutes and then drop it. And maybe 7 or 8 hours later, do the same thing and drop it. Throw scenarios into your head. What if this happens? What if that happens? And drop it again. I don't think you can obsess over it, because it'll only bring you down. But keep to yourself, keep to your own crew, and look forward to it. All the work is done.
Colm, there's tons of aspects to this final, obviously. For the 2 managers, stakes are sneakily high here. So McGuinness, very obviously, if after doing what he did in 12, if he's to return here and resuscitate them and win another, I mean, he's more legendary than he already is. It's phenomenal. And then for Jack O'Connor, so this is his 8th final, and he's won 4 of them. He should and will go down as a great manager, but by the same token, if this is his last year, as it seems to be, there's a big difference between winning his 5th, and then only Micko and only Jim Gavin are ahead of him on the all-time list, or staying on 4, and it's like, geez, he lost 4 as well, though, and a few down in Kerry might mutter that behind his back, you know what I mean? 4 and 4, as opposed to 5th All-Ireland. So one of these managers on Sunday night is like, whew, has gone to another echelon.
I think McGuinness already is there, because standards are different in Donegal, even if he would like to lift the perception of a standard in his own county. He's managed them for 6 years. He has now brought Donegal to 3 All-Ireland finals, coming through Ulster, which is still a thing. They hadn't been to, it was one final, 1992, for the previous 128 years, whatever it was before that. So that's a remarkable transformation in a county. Jack O'Connor has not sold himself, but always felt he was the outsider coming in. He has no real background as a Kerry footballer, and that counts in Kerry, there's no doubt. But he has brought them around. I mean, they were the team that couldn't win a tight game for a few years up to 2022, and they went and won that All-Ireland. But you're right, 5 All-Ireland titles would really push him beyond, and this would be such a big All-Ireland title for Kerry. Obviously, there's no Dublin on their road this time. So if you take the All-Ireland finals, that the big ones that Kerry have won in the past, people talk about 1955 when Kevin Heffernan's Dublin team came with a new style of play. All city-based players generated big interest around Dublin. They were perceived as unbeatable that year. They beat Meath, who were All-Ireland champions, ran in 5 goals in a Leinster final. There was such hype about that Dublin team in 1955, by all accounts. Kerry came with a team playing traditional football and beat them. That's seen as a very, very big All-Ireland title for Kerry, as is 1978. And after that, then, you can pick and choose. But this feels like it would be a really big one to tilt that balance back and to beat 3 Ulster teams on the run-in. Armagh, Tyrone, even though there's no Dublin on that road, and that's always the benchmark, but to beat Tyrone, Armagh and then Donegal, and to come up against those styles really feels like it's a big one for this Kerry team and Kerry in general. So Jack would really elevate himself both. So the stakes are huge for both. I probably feel more so for Jack O'Connor because he will probably get out after this. It'll be his last time, I would imagine, as Kerry manager, unless they're sending out an SOS for him again. So the stakes are probably that bit higher for Jack, even though he has won so much more.
How is Jack O'Connor perceived or regarded down in Kerry?
I think you can't argue with his record. He's won All-Ireland titles at schools, at minor, at under 21 and senior level. He's in a select group with that. He has come back. I think he won an All-Ireland title in 2009 and then came back a number of years later and won one in 2022, which was an unbelievable feat in itself. I think, to be fair to him, he put up with a fair amount of, not abuse, but fellas within his own county. And I think this is the thing that would have affected Jack down the years. Jack came in as, I suppose, a manager in Kerry when he wasn't a former player. He didn't carry the status of a former player in Kerry. And that doesn't, look, there's an amount of managers that have proven Mickey Hart. Like, there's an amount of managers. You don't have to have that. But it carries weight within Kerry as well, for some strange reason. But Jack had to fight that throughout his career, and I'd say he carried a chip on his shoulder about that for a long, long time. I think he's more comfortable in himself now, and I think he was under pressure at the start of this year, Joe. He was struggling to put a management team together. They were struggling very early on in the league. They could have gone down. They lost serious players in the championship: Tom Sullivan, Diarmuid O'Connor, Paul Ganey. You had internally after the loss against Meath, there was fellas questioning them, and to be fair, this is the beauty of management. Like, you can put it down, it's a lot wider, but it's Jack's name that's on the door, and he's the fella that if this comes off, I think it'll be his greatest achievement of the whole lot, no matter, bar none. And you can talk about 5, but it's just a full season of it. There's been so many emotions throughout the whole thing, and there was fellas, like, there's a love-hate with a lot of people in Kerry with him. But he, as I said at the start, he has the numbers and he has the titles, and nobody can question it. And if he pulls this off, it's unbelievable. But I think another thing that hasn't been mentioned with Jim McGuinness is a good buddy of mine says, "Do you ever read McGuinness's book?" I says, "No." And he says it's very good. He goes into huge detail. He says he doesn't go into detail about the Kerry loss flag. And McGuinness was down in Kerry, and McGuinness kind of has an understanding of Kerry football maybe that other people wouldn't. He spent 2 years down here in college. And it's come out in the last few days that loss hurt him and that he thought about it an awful lot. And I think that's a huge factor in it. And I think it's a motivating factor for Kerry. There'd be nothing sweeter than making him go back up to Donegal with another bit of hurt in it. But there's no doubt that Jim McGuinness will use that. And you can talk about focusing in on the game and producing a performance. We saw it from Liam Cahill. They will use a bit of black magic as well when they need it. And I think McGuinness will try to bottle that hurt, even though there aren't too many fellas involved in 2014. to do something special on Sunday. They seem like they're on a mission, but no different to what Kerry are on themselves, Joe.
Yeah. Well, he said about 14, he was talking this week to the press that until he took the Donegal job again, he thought about that game every single day of his life. And he was obviously a busy man in between. He said, I can remember walking around the hotel after we lost that day. I was in a daze. I didn't know what had happened, didn't know where I was. I didn't know what had gone wrong. He said, it's very painful. And then you have to go to a banquet and there's 1,200 people and you don't want to see anybody. Not a nice place to be. So
He
stayed with him.
Joe, he said one of the most remarkable things I've read in an autobiography, what he wrote in the book about that 2014 All-Ireland final. It stands out with me so much that someone would actually think this on the sideline, that near the end of that game, Donegal are chasing it, and Colin McFadden gets a chance right at the end, and he pushes it, and it goes off the post, and it goes wide. And Jim McGuinness says in his autobiography, he says, I'm glad we don't get that goal, which would have given them a draw. Game goes to replay. He says, I'm happy about that. He says, we didn't deserve it. Our performance didn't merit that opportunity to go in. And for a manager to think that standing on the sideline, it always jumped out at me how he looked at that.
Yeah. Tomás, just one follow-up. We put the managers to bed. That love-hate thing on Jacko, that's very interesting to those of us outside the county. I mean, I know he can be a bit spiky, and we've seen him emotional this year in particular. But like 4 All-Irelands on the precipice of a 5th, I mean, any other county, it's not a love-hate thing. It's love all the way.
Oh, I know, but I mean, Joe, don't get me wrong. Like his people within the county understand well, and I know even if he loses, he still has a record that not a lot of managers in Kerry would have. So I don't think he has to worry from that point of view. But I think Jack, from the get-go, has proved doubters wrong from the very, very start. And he thrives on that. I think he's a different manager now than he was when he came in charge of us way back along. I think he's relaxed a little bit more. I think you see it there with the selectors talking during the week. He delegates a lot more. He used to do basically everything back in the day. So I think it would elevate him to a level where you can compare him to other huge managers throughout the country, etc. But in fairness, his legacy is still solid enough in Kerry and what he has achieved at every level.
Do you know what I can't get my head around is there's more talk of him not coming back next year than there is him staying on. Does that make sense?
Well, he's kind of almost said himself it's his last year, has he? It's never said directly, but it's like it's a line here or there almost.
He did intimate. I did a piece of him earlier in the year, and he said, "Look, he's not one," and he consistently says this. He's not one for hanging around. His first term was 3 years. His second term was 4 years. He has intimated this one will probably be 4 years, but that's not given or certain either. We're only projecting that. But he does like to keep it within that. His previous 2 were 3 and 4.
But terms in GA is not real, is it? Like, if someone says I'm going to be doing 3 years.
No, it's not.
It's not really real. There's no contracts there. So what I'm saying is if you have a manager there that is decorated like he is, why isn't there everything in terms of the noise around them to be, we hope he stays on.
What can we do to make
sure
he
stays?
Yeah.
I don't see that.
It's like it's the fact that he's been in and out. He's done his 3rd stint as a manager. So it's just, as you've mentioned before, it's just the way he does it. But it's like anything else, lads. If he wins it, it's Jack himself that writes the script. So it'll be down to Jack what he does basically. If you know.
Yeah. McGuinness, we know, is a brilliant orator, will speak brilliantly. Like I would think the team talk he'll give 15 minutes before throw-in if he wants to get them kind of primed and ready will be quite something. What's Jack like in a dressing room in that respect, Tomás?
I see Jim outside in the pitch every match, championship, and he'll give him the last talk. And I'm wondering, like, they probably have a meeting the night before. They probably have a chat in the dressing room. And then he's talking to them right before the throw-in as well. And I'm saying, Jesus, what could he be adding differently that he hasn't said already? Jack was quiet, Joe. Jack wasn't brimming fire like. Right. Jack allowed... if Jack needed to add a bit of edge, he'd ask a few fellas to talk. Certain fellas to talk that would add that for him. But he was calm inside in the dressing room. He never panicked. He never roared. He was just cool enough now. I've been in the dressing room with a lot of fellas, and no, he was probably the calmest of the lot and steady, so they get their message across, focusing on a few points, and let the team motivate itself, basically.
Very good. That sounds like the way to go, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
Albeit
yeah. I mean,
McGuinness is doing it a different way, and that works too.
The problem is nowadays I think there's a realization that players react differently to different kind of information. So I would imagine McGuinness is working on repetition when Tomás saying he's probably doing a message in the change room. He's in the huddle before they run out for the start of the game. I'd say he's reinforcing the same message over and over and over again. Why do I think that? Because I've heard him say, or I've heard other players that played with him say that he constantly was talking the last term about we're going to win an All-Ireland, we're going to win an All-Ireland. So I'd imagine he's reinforcing repetition there through the message that he has.
Okay, well, so they're the two managers, super interested in both sides, whatever way it plays out on Sunday. Colm, who's the better road-tested team coming in here? Kerry have played 7 games, Donegal have played 10, and if you just go recent history, kind of in knockout stages, Kerry have taken care of Cavan, and then Armagh, their standout performance, and then very nicely against Tyrone in the semi-final. Donegal with their 10 games, when it came to the knockout stages, it was Louth, and then Monaghan, and then Meath. They breezed through of late.
It's reverse. Obviously, earlier part of the year, Kerry have, but that was a tough game for Kerry and Cork and Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Munster, and then they have the Munster final against Clare, and they ease into through the qualifiers and maybe caught a little bit cold against Meath. Whereas for Donegal it's the reverse. They're right out in the first weekend in April against Derry, and then they have Monaghan. That was a tough game for them in Clonus, down an Ulster final that goes to extra time. So they're really, and it comes to Roscommon and that game against Mayo, and you can really feel Jim McGuinness's frustration with the season, the way it's going. They're out week after week. Then they have that 6-day turnaround, and you think to the 7-day turnaround it was to Louth, and there's frustration there, the way the season is mapped out for them. But then the road clears for them. It's Louth, Monaghan, Meath. In the middle of that, Monaghan have given them a very, very good test, especially in the first half. They're behind by 7, and they come really strong to win that game. And that's a really impressive performance. The Meath game, they're never in trouble in that. So road tested a little bit less than Kerry, who really have to dig deep against Armagh. They're 5 points down when they hit that 15-minute purple patch, when they kill the Armagh kick out and they score 14 points, and 7 of them are directly off the Armagh kick out, and that's a phenomenal stretch of play. But they really have to be at their best for that. And at times too against Tyrone are testing them a little bit more. They run out easy winners, and they could have had 5-6 goals that day, no question. So I think Armagh and Tyrone, you look at the Armagh Tyrone games that Donegal had in Ulster, very, very close actually. They needed a winner against Tyrone, and then the other game, the Ulster final, goes to extra time. Kerry win those a little bit easier against Armagh and Tyrone and Croke Park. I think Kerry will feel more road tested perhaps than Donegal, but I don't think it really matters because Donegal have a bank of that from earlier in the year.
I have to say that's my sense too, Philly. Even though I'm the one asking the question, I don't see a great advantage to either or here coming into Sunday.
No. You've two teams that are ultimately set out to get to where they are, in terms of getting to the final. And it's a good point that Colin's made, that they've had different momentum throughout the season and different challenges, but I think that all gets kind of wiped off the table now, and it's just right. This is who we have in front of us, and this is how. This is what we'll expect in terms of, this is what we can rehearse and training for the next couple of weeks for what Kerry are going to give us if we're Donegal or Donegal to Kerry. But then this is what we need to focus on. This is what's worked really well for us, and going after that, I think thinking about then all the other stuff is only coming in on the basis of what you're trying to do on the day.
So getting into the game, Tomás, I remember we spoke ahead of the Armagh game, and I remember your big thought then was, if Kerry's middle eight can compete, you really fancy them, and it Joe O'Connor and friends, they more than competed that day. What's your main thought ahead of the final on Sunday? Where are you kind of leaning in terms of the winning and losing of this game? Because I must say, I find it very, very hard to call.
I find it very hard to call myself, Joe. And at 1 second, I'm thinking you'd think you'd lean towards Donegal maybe more so with how road tested they are and how many scores they are and how efficient they are up front. And there's no team I think that have been fully blocked up at the back. Everybody's been got at, whether it's from kickouts or they're wide open in a way that they weren't in previous years. But that's for everybody. I'd question at times, sometimes, and it mightn't be logical, but you look at Donegal and Tyrone beat Donegal, and you can question the time it happened. You can question where Donegal, Mayo should have beaten Donegal. I was above that game that day. Mayo will look back at that. Then you question Meath. I don't think Meath were at the level at all, and I don't think that game will be of huge benefit to Donegal ultimately if it is a case that they don't win it. And Monaghan, and that's the one at half time I said, whoa, Monaghan have a right good chance here. And when the need was greatest, Donegal answered that. Um, if you ask me, I think you could sit and talk about so many different parts of the game, but from a Kerry point of view, right? Everybody's talking about David Clifford, but you need to control a lot of your own kickouts. You need, I feel, to go after Patton. I think Meath went after Patton 3 or 4 times in that first half and made hay out of it. I'm not saying that you're going to get another Rafferty situation. You won't. I don't think you will. But you need to put heat on them. You need to win more of their kickouts maybe than them possibly. You need to mind the ball when you have it. And they talk about Donegal's efficiency. Kerry aren't too bad up front either, Joe, and they have players and they have the patience. Like, yes, they do want to put the ball in quickly to David Clifford. I don't think that'll be on this weekend. I think Donegal, it doesn't look like they're stepping off the kick out because there'll still be 4 or 5 players up front, but they are. They'll give you the short kick out so that they can take the space away from Clifford behind. And I think there'll be a lot more slow attacks for Kerry to deal with this weekend. And I think that's where the winning of the game will be. If Kerry, and you can't rely on Clifford in those situations, if Kerry can patiently break Donegal down, I think Kerry will win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I that's a scenario you can absolutely see. That's that slower build up and that early ball to Clifford box stuff, because you have to box that early ball to Clifford. Then like the near touch line, if they're playing left to right when you're watching them at Croker lately, and he's one-on-one with his man, there's just not a chance they're going to let that happen. The one thing, Tomás, we've seen Clifford do, even when Kerry are building up slowly, is he is getting a nice little taste for saying, well, sod this, I'm coming out, I'm popping over a 2-pointer, no problem on the loop. So, he's finding a way to insert himself into the game brilliantly this season.
Well, if you look back, Joe, at 2014, I think Fitzmaurice was good that time. He kept players, he kept his half back line in situ. So when Donegal, and look, you can say it's so long ago, but their game was similar enough in that they broke at pace and they tried to come up the field. That day, the Kerry forwards worked like absolute dogs that hadn't worked at a level before that season. But also, they had a layer at the back that was there. Now, I'm not sure they do anything similar, but I do think that when Donegal are actually trying to attack, Joe, I think it's going to be huge for Kerry the way they're going to defend from it. And I think it's one of the key issues, I think, that will be thrown at Kerry. Like, if I put it like this, Joe, the only way Kerry are going to get long ball into Clifford is if Donegal fully commit in that kick out and they lose it. Now, it's not guaranteed. Donegal are big men around the middle of the park as well, so it'll come down to breaking ball. But if Kerry can get their breaking ball, there's an option then to kick it. I don't see Kerry to be. I was listening to something yesterday, and they made a good point. An awful amount of the All-Ireland finals are actually, they're not, the semi-finals are actually poor. I thought the semi-finals would be better than they were, but the final would be a poor game, I think, because people overthink it and get more tactical because of what's at stake in a final. I don't think the long ball will be on, but I do take your point. Kerry brought James, I don't know, out from the full forward line that year against Donegal in 2014. Now, I'm not saying they'll bring Clifford out all the time, but I guarantee you he'll spend more time outside than he will inside. And in the long ball, everybody's saying McCall will pick him up. I don't think McCall in space would not mark Clifford. That's my own opinion.
Right.
But McCall, with an organised Donegal, stepping off maybe Shane Ryan, cutely giving him the corner back kick out, they'll get organised and they'll make sure Clifford won't have the space. But he's so good enough, if he gets half a yard. But I wouldn't, Joe, if we're relying on David Clifford going into this final, we're in trouble. And that's where the other lads have to come into it.
Yeah, that's kind of that's how Kerry are talked about, isn't it? The over-reliance on Clifford, the reliance on Clifford.
Well, the biggest thing is that for everything you think tactically, there's an opposite. So if you look at, for example, the way Donegal set up defensively, you could say that they're actually very good structurally. They'll swing in from the blind side so that they're decreasing the space that you can attack into. So, but then the opposite of that is if Kerry can attack central, right, it means then they can't get the players coming in from the opposite side. So if they're attacking the left side, right, the players on the right side, the Donegal players, you'll see them coming in off the line. Yeah. So there's no space or gaps to get probably goal chances or scores. But if you attack them centrally, where do those players? They both come in, and that gives you the gaps from the outside. So it is going to be a game of chess. Like it is like, can we get bodies in to keep the depth so that they're pushed back a little bit? And I would imagine Kerry will be looking at the game and going, how many times can we actually penetrate Donegal from turnovers, from kickouts? And I think Donegal are going to go along a lot. I think they're going to go long in the kick out, and I think they're going to go long into the full forward line. Don't be surprised if we hit a few boomers on top of Murphy, because we haven't seen it much. Seen a little bit in the Ulster final. The odd ball went in and worked really well, but since then it hasn't come out.
It's strange. They did
the
it a few times in that first half, and we've never seen it again all season.
Seen it much now. So
I think he's kept it in the back pocket.
Well, we've seen Murphy doing it in big games in Croke Park before. In McGuinness's first term, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it was a Lacey that kicked the ball into him against, was it Mayo?
Yeah, it was.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if you see something like that, just to transition fast, so that pushes Kerry back a little bit. But I would say Donegal will look to play the game on their terms to build confidence in the group, and not go, right, hold on a second, we're playing a Kerry team here. Yeah. We should change everything to adapt to them. It should be like, we're going to tweak one or two things, but we're going to go for it, because everything we've done this year has worked for us.
The Clifford thing's always talked about, I suppose. He has scored 423 in the last 3 games, 853 in 7 games. Tomás Ó Sé stepped up obviously against Armagh massively, Paddy as well. The thing about relying on David Clifford, Colm, is quite reliable just now. He is in phenomenal form. I think the guy's unmarkable. I don't see, you can do whatever structure you want, you can do whatever you want. Quick ball into him, he'll kill you. I think if they're having the slow build-up that Tomás talks about, he's getting very comfortable now. I'll come out, I'll come in a loop, I'll kick a 2-pointer, dagger in your hearts. I kind of think a reliance on him just now is probably okay.
He's unmarkable one-on-one, but he won't find himself in that situation as often as maybe has found himself in recent games. Now, I thought Armagh might have maybe, but that was in the second half when they were probably chasing the game a little bit. They did contain him to a degree, but obviously left Tomás Ó Sé in a situation where he was able to get 7 or 8 shots off from around the D, and really made progress in that regard. So they probably took their eye off the ball, maybe over concentrated. Everybody subconsciously is looking towards him. He's in phenomenal form, and he's very, very used to the pressure now at this stage that's on him, because it's just a thing. That's it. It's not impacting on him. He's still getting away the same number of shots. There's high dependency on him, but then Kerry are putting so much through him. I mean, this is deliberate. They are focusing on getting the ball into him whatever way, preferably that fast ball, that fast kicked ball into his corner, and he does a lot of the rest. And his passing is superb too. I mean, his vision and his passing, to lay off chances, he's doing it all the time, as well as scoring. So there are so many strands to what he can do. But there is high dependency on both David Clifford and Tomás Ó Sé to get the scores.
Yeah, they're the big two.
56%.
Is that right?
Of the scores.
Okay.
David Clifford's 853, Tomás Ó Sé has 144. Combined, it's 997 out of 15, 175, something like that. It's 56%. If you want 56% of the Donegal scores, you have to put together their top 6 players. So it's 2 providing that percentage for Kerry, 6 providing the percentage for Donegal. Their top 6 scorers match the percentage of Clifford and O'Shea. So that's the level of dependency. You look at where Donegal get their scores from. Kerry have actually had more scores, but Donegal get more scores evenly spread around. Peadar Mogan back up to 14 points this year. Finbar Rorty in his first season has come forward for 1-5. You have Ryan McHugh, Quaylen McGonigal. Well, he's probably sitting off for this game, but Quaylen McColgan, he's got a goal and 2. You have these defenders coming forward at pace to join attack, which is more so than what Kerry have. But that's deliberate too. That's the way they play the game, and that's where the clash of styles, the perceived clash of styles in this game emanates from.
What's the weather like? It's going to be wet, is it?
Didn't check, actually.
I had a look. I think it is going to be wet. Now, I don't know if it's torrential, but obviously, it's easier to play that running game than long ball up to Clifford,
Yeah. The one thing I'd say on there's a piece before the ball gets up to that end of the pitch is the energy that you need to be explosive to get on the ball, and I know people might think that's a small thing, but it's very important, because if you play against a team that are very efficient, like Donegal are, okay, so every time they get a chance, their percentages are quite high. I think they're up around 70s at the minute, 70% conversion rate. So when you're chasing that back and you're getting scores, then the percentage of players, your efficiency against that has to go up, right? So you're going to be fatigued going back up the pitch. Now, I know the 3 stay up now, which helps that, but the other group coming up, they're going to be more fatigued going back and forth. Okay, you can say you can rotate them, but the ball going in is probably not as... They're not going to be as fresh, the players, to hit the ball in, the decision-making, the execution of the pass, the runs off the ball, the run support, and all of those things start to drop in terms of energy. So if Donegal can create chaos by keeping their efficiency rate up, that will fatigue Kerry. And then if Kerry can combat that, that's then comes back to the question of where they prepped right throughout the whole year.
Yeah. On Donegal efficiency there, Philly saying 70-odd%, Tomás. Like, you think of recent games with Donegal, it's a little bit Dublin-esque, actually. It's meant as a compliment, but I mean, even with the 2-pointer where, we saw Meath taking pot shots and they went wide and you could feel the energy and the belief drain out of the stadium from Meath fans. Donegal, like, almost to a fault, another loop, another loop, another loop, another loop. You could shoot, another loop, and eventually shoot. What's it like defending against that? Very draining. And they've, one way or another, they seem to work. I mean, eventually those loops pay off and they do seem to work a score.
Yeah, I think that's... Like, I take the point, and they might do it. They might go for the long ball. But listening to McGuinness, and McGuinness doesn't give much away in interviews, there's a huge talk. He hates this basketball game. He hates coughing up possession. He hates up and down the field defending. He wants to have more control. I think the control has gone from kick out. So I think when they have possession, he makes no bones about it. They're absolutely brilliant at the running. You've mentioned it already. You have Moore and you have Rorty and you have McHugh and Owen Bond. The 2 O'Donnells are absolutely huge players for them as well. So it's going to be massive for them. I think they'll stick to their ball carrying. I think there's no defence in the country, Donegal included, who like being ran at directly. And I think they'll wait for their chance and go for it. But it's very, very difficult to defend that looping style of play that they do when a defence, because they're very, very patient with it, Joe. They'll take their time, as you say. You have to be fully focused. And if you get that turnover, I think you'll have to mirror the way they try to play. And I think that's an area where Donegal are probably more used of that type of defending than Kerry possibly. But don't underestimate Kerry as well. I think their defence has stood up tall this year. I think part of that is the ferocity that they tackle with. And Joe O'Connor is an example of that. Brian Begley is an example of that. They're not giving players as much time as they had before. And, when you have players like midfielders like Langan who can hurt you from distance, to the same effect as Sean O'Shea would hurt you from distance, they are a threat, like. And I think, you speak about kickouts. That's why I say the less time Donegal have the ball in their hands, better for Kerry, obviously. But you can only do that through trying to control as much as you can kickouts on both sides. Make sure that you do not cough up cheap ball to Donegal, and then when Donegal themselves are in possession, flip it over and go after them in the key areas like mad dogs.
Yeah. In terms of sheer talent, lads, Kerry have the more talented group, do they?
Individually,
If you're doing a combined 15.
Depends what you're looking at, Joe. If
I
you're
think
looking
the
at
back
the
three.
game,
If you Tomas, if you go through the lines, I
Yeah.
think the back three right now on form, Donegal for me, half back line.
All three.
Well, I'd definitely say Rorty and Morgan give you a headache that you have to talk to your team about them attacking. Like, and they're also doing unbelievably well defensively. McCall will probably pick up the big man Clifford, and I think half back line is a big challenge. I think the half back line the last day for Kerry were excellent.
And against Armagh, brilliant.
Yeah, they were really good. Midfield is a you'd have 1-on-1. I'd say O'Connor and Langan would be an unbelievable dream team.
Yeah.
And then the full forward line for me, I would probably go with Kerry. I know Murphy's in there, O'Donnell Moore and Gallen. But yeah, the half forward line for me.
Sean O'Shea's
I'd go
in.
with Kerry again. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So slightly Kerry.
Joe, Diarmuid O'Connor would be one of Kerry's most talented players, there's no doubt, underage right through, and he looked as if he was moving to a position where he's really going to deliver, and looks like he's out Tom O'Sullivan, that free-scoring corner back, really good at kicking long distance, and a very good defender, as he has shown one-on-one as well, and Paul Ganey. So they're three what you might call really skillful, talented players that may not be available. Obviously, one or two of them could make the bench this weekend. I'm not so sure. So that is a bit of a deficit. I think it's very, very closely related. I mean, Michael Murphy's talent, huge, some of the things he can do. Shane O'Donnell's ball carrying, Conor O'Donnell has come. So those players have really, really lifted their games for Donegal. I think it's quite even in that regard.
Yeah.
Given Kerry's absentees.
I think the other question then to add on to that is who's the strongest bench? And I think it's close, but I think Donegal are tipping that a little bit at the minute for me.
Right.
But you have Spillane, you have Burns, Morley coming on. So Kerry have, there was probably questions over the strength of the squad for Kerry this year, but I think they've found that with the bodies that are missing, they've found players to come in and add energy off the bench.
If Micheál Burns comes on like he did against Armagh and kicks points and wins kickouts, amazing. But maybe a lot's been read into that one game as well. It's hard to know. Tomás, you were coming in. You were saying depends what you're looking for.
Yeah, but if you go, I'd agree with Philly there that I would probably say Donegal probably have the stronger bench coming in with McGee and the likes of McBrearty, who have proven and would probably see themselves as starters on nearly every team in the country. But if you go back, if you compare the two teams, I would say Kerry would go toe to toe with them nearly in every line, bar probably midfield and maybe the full back line. Jason Foley's been outstanding. I have to say that Jason Foley's been outstanding, but I don't think the way Donegal play, Donegal don't rely on one inside attacker. Gallen has been up and down throughout the season. But it's the midfield I find very interesting in Kerry. Kerry are basically playing, if they had everybody fit, Diarmuid O'Connor and probably Barry Dan Sullivan would be midfield for Kerry. Two of them, both of them are missing. But if you watch what they did closely, I don't know, is it that they basically get the boys to compete against the Tyrone was very obvious. So when Kerry were attacking, and it was a slow attack. If the long ball option, and this is where you'll see it against Donegal an awful lot, because I don't think the long ball option would be there. They delegated the two boys, Sean O'Brien and Mark O'Shea went in deep to the full forward line, right? Just went into the end line, basically taking them out of the play. The boys weren't going to put the ball in at all. That did two things. It allowed your strike runners, or what Sean O'Shea and Paddy and David was looping out around, give them that little bit of extra space. So the two Tyrone midfielders are inside. But double on that, if Kerry got a shot off, went wide or went over the bar, the boys had a 60-yard run to get out under your man's kick out. Some of them got out, but it did take away from their effectiveness. Then on the flip side, if you watch Shane Ryan's kick out that he wants, which I think Donegal will probably give him, is the short one. So they're kind of asking their midfield. They're not really planking ball out on top of them, which I think they should now and then. But they're using their midfield in such a way that it's kind of allowing other players to step up. Don't get me wrong, the boys will compete, the boys will crash, the boys will do the simple things very, very well. But they are playing with their second string midfielders.
The interesting point there is the midfielders run into the full forward line. Generally, are probably going to be marked by other midfielders. So that pulls the Donegal midfielders into the full forward line. Patton comes out quick onto the tee and bangs it long. There's no midfielders out there. But Patton doesn't hit the midfielders with a long boomer. He hits Murphy.
Yeah.
You know, so they've kind of covered that a little bit.
Patton has that capacity to land the ball in the opposite half of the field. I remember one particular kick against Mayo landed in the small D, not just the 40-metre arc.
Yeah.
It lands almost short of the 20-metre mark. If you look at his kick out, the last kick out to create the winning score that day in Roscommon for Kieran Moore, how quickly he got it on the tee and got it down that left wing. And then against Meath, both goals, two of the 3 goals came from kickouts, and Mead being unable to adjust to the length of the kickout. He was putting it right up onto the Cusick stand side there in the second half towards the Davin end, and it was going, you know, around the 40-metre mark, even 45-metre mark, and even beyond it.
Yeah.
And once they got the ball in behind, it was game over for Meath.
Jason Foley was interviewed on the pitch after the Tyrone win, and he was saying big thing all week was the long kick out and the little flick pass, and suddenly they're in, and that was, you know, was a big focus for them. So they'll have more of the same potentially as well.
Yeah.
In Donegal. So look, we can talk about this forever, and it's just really hard to predict. Final thoughts, predictions, sum up where you are in it. Philly, what's going to happen and why? Where are you?
I get a biased feeling around Donegal because I see so many similarities to the group I played with. So they're process driven. They've played games where they haven't been at the height of the performance levels, particularly in first halves, but they keep sticking. The third quarter, they're dominating all the time. They've got that efficiency rate. And I'm not saying they're going to, Kerry are not going to throw problems at them. Kerry, for me, they're playing a team that are probably their worst nightmare in terms of being a structured team. So if you can keep Clifford down a bit quieter and be structured defensively, talking about the Tyrone game, Tyrone probably would have been a bit closer than what the game played out to be. So that's why I'm kind of edging Donegal.
Okay. And I presume that process-driven type of approach, that's easier for them to hit a 7 out of 10 day, whereas Kerry, there's a degree of like, Jesus, we hope Sean and David are feeling really good, and that can be a bit more volatile. Is that part of the thinking?
Well, the key thing is that let's say as a management team, you're looking on the pitch and you're going, right, I can only make 1 or 2 decisions here to help the team. I can change a tactic, I can change a player positionally, I can bring a sub on. But essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to fill roles, right? So you're saying, right, this guy, well, Morgan attacks up this way, so McFadden Ferry, I'm going to put him in there. Or one of the midfielders is not moving well, so I'm going to put McGee in for McFadden after 50 minutes. So the players are kind of, it's all set up and structured. Whereas I would say Kerry, which would be, for the viewer, would be like, just go and play football. It's beautiful to watch, it's skillful, they've unbelievable talent in the Cliffords and O'Shea. So it's much harder to kind of, okay, if he doesn't play, if O'Connor's the manager looking in going, if he doesn't play, who's going to get me the scores? Who's going to mind the full back line if he's not playing well? If you look at, for example, if you put Clifford, Morgan on Paddy Clifford, and you put Rowerty on Geaney, if one of them are underperforming, all you do straight away is, instead of changing the sub, is just swap them over. Or you might bring in McColgan to pick someone up because he can be a man marker. So that's what I'm saying. And McGuinness has so many hybrid players.
And they can change, and the system stays the
so
same.
That's why I'm kind of, and I'm not saying it's convincingly.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm kind of edging more Donegal.
Yeah, okay, interesting. And I guess your worry is, well, if Kerry do have one of those days like that 15 minutes against Armagh, then it's hard to live with them. So that's where it's tricky.
And a small thing, sorry, just to add as well, is from my experience, the weather has a major impact.
Yeah, I think it's going to be wet.
If it's wet, like I remember 2015, and I remember the feeling So I'd done my homework. I knew I'd be I was going to mark Cooper. And I remember that day seeing the rain when I woke up and I went, right, this is it. The ball is going to be slippy. I'm going to get tackles in. He's not going to be able to move as quick. He's not going to be able to accelerate as quick. That has a huge part to play.
Huge, absolutely.
I'm maybe not the best here, Joe. I'm feeling a bit fragile after projecting Cork to win by 5 points last weekend.
You weren't alone.
And also to take Darren McCarthy off the freeze and hand them over to Jason Ford.
All right, fair enough.
That didn't work out too well. So I flipped on this even since last week. At the outset of the season, I thought Donegal, and they've done everything that I would have assumed they do. They've improved from last year. They've added more strands to their game. Their counter-attacking this year has been exceptional at times. I mean, Kerry give Donegal a turnover and they're gone. Mead saw it when Curtis was overturned by Rorty and Kieran Moore has the ball in the net at the other end. And you saw it against Monaghan. There was Rorty got a turnover as well and Desi Ward early on and Owen Ban Gallagher at the other end. Began is making a save and Pater Mogan is putting over the third point. And the closest they have 4 players in the goalmouth, in the Monaghan goalmouth that day, and 2 of them are defenders who have made their way up. And just behind is Rorty making a run. That's how quick they get up. So their counter-attacking is extremely dangerous for Kerry. So Kerry have to protect the ball here. Kerry obviously have, and we've discussed David Clifford, and he's in absolutely brilliant form, confident, at his ease in terms of what's around him. The attention he will get is going to release someone else, and it could be Dylan Geeney this weekend. It could be Dylan Geeney that breaks free from the attention. And there's a decision for Donegal to make as to how many Kerry players they go one-on-one with. Usually they'll pick up 2 of the opposition's most dangerous players, but here they really have to consider applying a third man marker. Is it Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea? And obviously, David Clifford will be picked up by McCall. And that may just throw them off slightly, the way that they defend and the way they fan out across the lines. It might that they have to preoccupy about three players. And Kerry are such a hard-hitting team. They really have defended well. They've spilled the ball, led by Joe O'Connor, but Gavin White too, player that you would associate more with speed and carrying the ball forward. Some of his tackles and some of his ability to get round and win ball on the ground and come away with it. It's been a feature.
To interrupt you, keep going, but Jason Foley in that same interview post-match against Tyrone, he sort of said, we keep hearing people saying we can't defend. It starts to get annoying after a while. We can defend.
They've defended really well, and Gavin White has been one of those that has really stood up and has probably dropped the perception that he's a nice player driving forward. He has hit hard this year, and he has got in and taken ball off opponents. But I just think that Donegal running game, that relentlessness that they have brought, will give Kerry sufficient trouble. And they'll build a score somewhere in the 20s. And if they can keep the goals out, and that's going to be difficult, obviously, but if they can keep the goals out, I think slightly Donegal.
Okay, very interesting.
Probably might have waited till after the All-Ireland to
say that. Well, by the way, just to squeeze it in, McGuinness was talking about Clifford, and I don't think he was playing mind games here. But he was just sincerely kind of talking at the press day. And it's kind of funny how this conversation is replicated all over the country. He said, myself and Mark Anthony, that's his son, myself and Mark Anthony were just chatting about it on the way up in the car there. And we were talking about the fact that David could be the best player who's ever played the game. So that's high praise indeed.
Desi Farrell said the exact same thing before the 2023 All-Ireland final too. They're right. They're both right. He probably is the best player to.
I don't think they're trying to mess with his head.
I don't think that's whatever it might be planned to be. They're actually stating probably. Probably a fact.
It's just that good. Clifford be reading it in any way.
I wouldn't think so.
No, and it's not the first time he's heard it. Yeah. Tomás, we have 2 Donegals here, so over to you. Final thoughts.
Well, I've that Jim McGuinness comment I heard Mickey Hart waxing lyrical about Kerry players for long enough before that never turned out well. He'd build you up and build you up and build you up. I'll say Kerry, Joe, and it's not a huge confidence, but I do think they'll win. I think they'll. My worry as a Kerry man is that Kerry aren't mentally tough enough. Like, I can see a scenario starting off where Donegal defend really fucking hard and maybe Kerry struggle to get scores. Donegal get a turnover or two, go up the field, pick off a few scores, and after 15 minutes, that Kerry might just panic a small bit. I think if they just toughen it out, there will be times where they'll be frustrated. And that's why I think it mightn't be the classic game of football that we think. They'll have to be very, very patient at times when we'd want to see this lovely, extravagant style of football. I don't think you're going to see that too often. Clifford will be take for it. I've no doubt he's so good that he will have an impact in the game on the scoreboard and in general play, but he's not going to shoot the lights out like he did in the semi-final. Therefore, the other players will have to have a huge game on every level, in defence, in attack, everything. But I harp and I go back to it, kick outs on both sides, don't cough up cheap ball and defend like dogs. Kerry will win.
Very good. Fellas, brilliant analysis. Enjoy the game. Tomás, have a grand afternoon down there. Enjoy the music.
We will indeed.
Good man.
I was going to get Cooney up to sing us out or to play us out. He said he'd come up. Steve Heath, no? No, he's gone, lads. He's gone. He's gone out for a bit of fresh air. Michelle. Michelle, let Stephen Paul. Oh, it's all right. No, he's gone, lads, and that would have been
Well, that's what you call a flat ending if I ever heard of one. Fucking hell!
He said he would.
What a showman! Tomás, thank you. Colm, thanks very much. Philly,
Thanks, lads.
enjoy the game. Thanks a mil.
Thanks, lads.